They say he was no ordinary man, but a demigod born of thunder and vengeance, betrayed by a goddess, driven mad by fate, and condemned to atone through 12 impossible labors. His name, Hercules. But behind the legend lies a darker truth, one you were never told. Daedalus and Icarus, a calming bedtime story, a tale of wisdom, wonder, and gentle warnings told in 5 meditative chapters. Chapter 1. The Labyrinth. And the genius, you find yourself standing at the edge of time itself, where ancient Crete spreads before you like a dream painted in golden sunlight and azure waters. The Mediterranean whispers its eternal songs against weathered cliffs, and you can almost taste the salt, sweet air that has carried countless stories across the centuries. In this timeless place, you witness the arrival of a man whose hands hold the power to reshape the very world around him. Daedalus, the master craftsman, the inventor whose mind burns bright with divine inspiration. You watch as he steps onto the sun-warmed stones of King Minos's palace, his weathered hands already sketching invisible blueprints in the air. The king has summoned him for a task that will change everything, to build a prison unlike any other, a labyrinth so complex that even its creator might lose himself within its twisting corridors. You feel the weight of this moment, the way destiny shifts and settles like sand in an hourglass. Daedalus accepts the commission with the quiet confidence of a man who has never met a challenge he cannot master. His mind already sees the finished work, stone passages that spiral inward like a nautilus shell, walls that rise and fall in mathematical precision, a maze so perfect that it becomes a work of art in itself. You follow him as he begins his work, watching as chalk marks appear on stone floors, as measuring ropes stretch across courtyards, as plans unfold like flowers blooming in fast motion. The labyrinth grows day by day, stone by carefully placed stone, each wall positioned with the precision of a master architect. The workers move like dancers in a slow ballet, carrying blocks of limestone that gleam white in the afternoon sun, mixing mortar that smells of ancient earth and distant mountains, laying foundations that will outlast empires. You can hear the gentle rhythm of their tools, the soft scraping of stone against stone, the whispered conversations that float on the warm Mediterranean breeze. As weeks flow into months, the labyrinth takes shape around you. Corridors branch and twist like the roots of some enormous tree. Dead ends appear where you least expect them, false passages that lead nowhere but shadows and silence. The very air within begins to hold a different quality, cooler, more mysterious, touched with echoes that seem to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Daedalus walks these halls each evening, memorizing every turn, every false path, every secret that his creation holds. You walk beside him in the gathering dusk, feeling the smooth stone beneath your feet, the way the walls seem to breathe with their own ancient life. The labyrinth is becoming more than architecture. It is becoming mythology itself. The craftsman's son, young Icarus, often accompanies these twilight walks. His bright eyes take in every detail, every curve and corner that his father has so carefully planned. The boy's laughter echoes off the stone walls, pure and clear as silver bells, bringing life to these solemn corridors. You watch the tender relationship between father and son. The way Daedalus's stern face softens when he looks at the boy. The patience with which he explains the geometric principles behind each design choice. The pride that glows in his eyes when Icarus asks insightful questions about the work. Why does this passage curve this way, father? The boy asks, his small hand tracing the smooth stone of a wall. Daedalus kneels beside him, his voice gentle as summer rain. Because straight lines are too easy to follow, my son, the mind expects them, but curves make us pause, make us think, make us choose our path more carefully. These lessons sink deep into the boy's eager mind. You can see how he absorbs not just the technical knowledge, but the philosophy behind his father's work, the understanding that true craftsmanship comes from both skill and wisdom, both precision and artistry. The labyrinth nears completion, and with it comes the knowledge of what it will contain. The Minotaur, the beast that is neither fully man nor fully bull, the creature that King Minos must hide from the world. You feel a chill that has nothing to do with the stone corridors, a shadow that falls across this monument to human ingenuity. But for now, in these final days of construction, there is only the satisfaction of work well done, the pride of creation, the joy of father and son working side by side in the fading light of each day. The labyrinth stands as a testament to what the human mind can achieve. A maze so perfect that it seems to have grown naturally from the earth itself. Daedalus makes his final inspections, walking every corridor one last time, ensuring that every measurement is exact, every angle precise, every dead end properly disguised. You accompany him on this journey, feeling the weight of completion, the bittersweet knowledge that this masterpiece will soon be sealed away from its creator. The workers pack their tools with the slow reluctance of those who have been part of something greater than themselves. The scaffolding comes down like the rigging of a great ship, leaving behind only the pure geometry of stone and shadow. The labyrinth breathes quietly in the Mediterranean twilight, ready to fulfill its dark purpose. King Minos arrives for the final inspection, his robes rustling like autumn leaves as he walks the completed corridors, his approval evident in the way he nods at each carefully crafted detail. Payment is made. Gold coins that ring like distant bells as they fall into Daedalus's palm. The transaction is complete. The labyrinth belongs to its patron now. But completion brings unexpected consequences. You watch as understanding dawns slowly in Daedalus's eyes. The king who commissioned this impossible maze now fears the man who created it. Who else knows its secrets? Who else could guide someone through its twisting paths? You have done magnificent work, King Minos says, his voice carrying undertones of regret and necessity. Too magnificent, perhaps, for your own good. The words fall into the twilight air like stones into still water, creating ripples of realization that spread outward through the gathering dusk. Daedalus's face remains calm, but you can see the calculations beginning behind his eyes, the rapid assessment of possibilities and dangers that marks the mind of a true strategist. Your Majesty honors me, Daedalus replies, his voice steady as bedrock. But his hand finds his son's shoulder, a protective gesture that speaks volumes about his priorities. The king's guards step forward, not threateningly, but with the quiet efficiency of men who have done this before. They carry no weapons, but their presence makes weapons unnecessary. The message is clear without being spoken. The labyrinth has become not just a prison for monsters, but for its maker as well. Young Icarus looks from his father to the king, confusion clouding his bright features. The boy cannot yet understand the politics of power, the way that knowledge itself can become a dangerous possession, the cruel irony that the very skill that brought them here now ensures they cannot leave. You feel the weight of this moment, the way that triumph transforms into tragedy with the slow inevitability of tides. The labyrinth stands complete around you, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. A monument to human achievement that has become a prison for human ambition. As the guards escort father and son deeper into the maze, you follow at a respectful distance, watching as the walls close around them like the pages of a book. The corridors that were once filled with the sounds of construction now echo only with footsteps and whispered reassurances. Daedalus speaks quietly to his son as they walk, his voice carrying the calm authority that has always been his greatest strength. Do not fear, Icarus. Every maze has a solution. Every prison has a weakness. We simply need to find it. The boy's trust in his father is absolute, shining in his eyes like starlight. He believes without question that the man who built this place can find a way out of it, that genius will triumph over circumstance, that love will overcome the cruelest of fates. Their footsteps fade into the stone silence of the labyrinth, leaving behind only the whisper of Mediterranean winds through carefully calculated passages. The maze settles into its eternal vigil, holding its secrets close, waiting for the next chapter of its story to unfold. You remain in the gathering darkness, truth, feeling the weight of ancient stones and older sorrows, knowing that this is only the beginning, that the true test of Daedalus's ingenuity lies not in what he has built, but in what he must now escape. The labyrinth breathes quietly around you, patient as stone, enduring as legend, ready to reveal whether the prison or the prisoner will prove stronger. The night settles over Crete like a dark blanket, and somewhere in the twisting corridors, a father holds his son close and begins to plan their freedom. Chapter 2. Wings of Wax and Ambition. Time moves differently within the labyrinth, measured not by the sun's passage, but by the steady drip of condensation from stone walls, by the rhythm of heartbeats in the darkness, by the soft sound of breathing that echoes through corridors that seem to stretch beyond the boundaries of the world itself. You find yourself walking these ancient passages, feeling the cool stone beneath your feet, the way the walls seem to pulse with their own mysterious life. Days have flowed into weeks since Daedalus and Icarus became prisoners of their own creation, and yet the master craftsman's mind has not been idle. In a small chamber deep within the maze, Daedalus has established a workshop of sorts. Here, surrounded by the very walls that hold them captive, he begins the most ambitious project of his legendary career. You watch as his weathered hands sort through the materials he has gathered, each item carefully chosen, each element essential to the impossible dream taking shape in his mind. Feathers, collected one by one from the birds that occasionally fly over the labyrinth walls, white gull feathers that catch the filtered light like scattered pearls, dark raven feathers that shimmer with oil, slick iridescence, brown sparrow feathers, soft and humble, but essential to his design all, each one precious, each one a small step toward freedom. Young Icarus helps his father with the patient dedication of youth, his small fingers surprisingly deft at sorting the feathers by size and type. His laughter has grown quieter in these stone corridors, but it has not disappeared entirely, still bubbling up like spring water when he discovers a particularly perfect specimen. "Look, father," he whispers, holding up a swan feather that gleams like moonlight. "It's as long as my forearm, Ma." Daedalus examines the treasure with the serious attention he gives to all of his son's contributions. Beautiful, my boy, this will be perfect for the primary flight surfaces. The gods have blessed us with their bounty. You settle in to watch the slow miracle of creation. The workshop fills gradually with the materials of impossible dreams. Wax, precious and golden, saved from the candles that light their meals, melted and refined until it reaches the perfect consistency, neither too hard nor too soft, but pliable enough to bind feathers while remaining strong enough to hold against the wind. Thread, carefully unraveled from their clothing, twisted and strengthened through patient work. The master craftsman's hands move with the precision of decades of practice, weaving together elements that nature never intended to combine, creating something that exists at the intersection of engineering and magic. The first wing takes shape slowly, like a poem being written word by careful word. You watch as Daedalus lays out the feathers in precise patterns, each one positioned according to principles that he seems to intuit rather than calculate. The structure emerges from his hands like something that has always existed, waiting only for the right moment to reveal itself. Starting with the smallest feathers at the tip, building outward in overlapping layers, each one secured with tiny drops of golden wax, the binding reinforced with thread so fine it seems almost invisible. The work requires infinite patience, steady hands, and the kind of absolute focus that can only come from necessity. Icarus watches every movement, absorbing the techniques through observation, occasionally asking questions that reveal his growing understanding of the work. Why do the feathers overlap this way, Father? Watch a bird's wing in flight. Daedalus replies, his hands never pausing in their work. Oh, see how the air flows over and through the feathers, how each one adjusts to catch the wind. Just so, we must copy nature, but improve upon it where we can. The workshop fills with the scent of melting wax and the subtle perfume of feathers. The air itself seems to thicken with possibility, with the weight of dreams taking physical form. You can feel the transformation happening, not just in the materials they work with, but in the very atmosphere of their prison. Days blur together in a rhythm of careful craft. The second wing begins to take shape, then the third, then the fourth, each one a masterpiece of engineering disguised as artistry. The feathers shimmer in the candlelight like living things, stirring with the slightest air current, already eager to embrace the sky. Daedalus works with the methodical patience of a man who understands that haste is the enemy of perfection. Each feather must be placed exactly right. Each drop of wax applied with precision. Each binding tested and retested. There will be no second chances once they leave the ground. You watch as father and son test the flexibility of their creations, stretching the wings carefully, feeling for weakness or imbalance. The structures respond like living things, bending and flexing with natural grace. The feathers catch the light and throw it back in patterns that seem almost too beautiful to be real. Their magnificent father, Icarus, breathes, his young face glowing with admiration and excitement. Will they really carry us through the sky like the birds? Daedalus pauses in his work, his hands stilling on the wing he's been perfecting. For a moment, his expression carries the weight of all his accumulated knowledge, all his understanding of the laws that govern the world. They will carry us, my son, but we must remember that we are not birds. We must be careful, cautious, respectful of powers greater than ourselves. The master craftsman begins to fashion the harnesses that will attach the wings to their bodies, lather straps that must distribute weight evenly, bronze fittings that will bear the stress of flight. The mechanical aspects of the design require the same attention to detail as the aerodynamic ones. Every component must work in perfect harmony. As the wings near completion, Daedalus begins to share the wisdom that will keep them alive in the alien realm of the sky. Listen carefully, Icarus, for your life will depend on remembering these words. We must fly neither too high nor too low. The middle path is safest. The boy listens with the focused attention that only children can bring to truly important matters. His eyes never leaving his father's face, absorbing not just the words, but the gravity behind them, the understanding that knowledge without wisdom can be more dangerous than ignorance. If we fly too low, Daedalus continues, his voice gentle but firm. The sea spray will weigh down our feathers, make our wings heavy and unresponsive. The ocean is jealous of those who would escape its embrace. It will try to pull us down. Icarus nods solemnly, though you can see in his bright eyes that the warning about flying too high interests him more. The boy has always been drawn to challenges, to the thrill of pushing boundaries and testing limits. This aspect of his nature brings both joy and concern to his father's heart. And if we fly too high, the boy asks, though you sense he already knows the answer, the sun's heat will melt our wax. Daedalus replies, the feathers will scatter like autumn leaves, and we will fall from the sky like stones. The gods do not appreciate mortals who fly too close to their domain. The warnings settle into the workshop air like incense, sacred and serious. You can feel the weight of ancient wisdom in the words, the understanding that their escape depends not just on courage, but on restraint, not just on ambition, but on humility. The final preparations begin as dawn approaches. The wings are tested one last time, adjusted and perfected until they move with the fluid grace of living things. The harnesses are fitted and refitted until they rest comfortably on human shoulders that were never meant to bear the burden of flight. Daedalus helps his son into his smaller wings first, adjusting the straps with the tender care of a father dressing his child for the first day of school. The feathers catch the early morning light streaming through a high window, transforming the boy into something between human and angel. Remember, the master craftsman says, as he fastens the final buckles, "Stay close to me, follow my path through the sky, and above all, remember the middle way, neither too high nor too low." Icarus flexes his shoulders, feeling the wings respond to his movements. The sensation is unlike anything he has ever experienced. The promise of flight singing in every carefully placed feather. "I understand, Father. I'll be careful." But even as he speaks the words, you can see the excitement building in his young face, the intoxicating thought of soaring through clouds, of seeing the world spread out below like a map, of touching the very dome of heaven itself. The wings seem to whisper of possibilities that no human has ever known. Daedalus attaches his own wings with practiced efficiency, his movements economical and purposeful. There is no wasted motion, no unnecessary flourish, only the calm confidence of a man who has calculated every variable and prepared for every contingency. The workshop that has been their world for so many days looks small and cluttered now, filled with the debris of creation, scraps of wax and thread, feathers that didn't make the final cut, the tools and materials of their impossible dream all. Soon it will be empty, left behind like a cocoon after the butterfly has emerged. Father and son stand together in the growing light, their wings casting strange shadows on the stone walls. The labyrinth that has held them prisoner is about to become merely another maze to be navigated. Seen from above, conquered by human ingenuity and divine inspiration, "Are you ready, my son?" Daedalus asks, his voice carrying both love and concern, excitement and caution, the complex emotions of a parent about to trust his child to forces beyond his control. Icarus spreads his wings wide, feeling them catch the air that flows through the stone corridors. The feathers rustle with promise, with the whispered possibility of freedom. I'm ready, Father. I've been ready since we first walked into this place. Oh. Together, they move toward the shaft of sunlight that marks their path to freedom, their wings whispering secrets to the ancient stones, their hearts beating with the rhythm of birds about to take flight. The labyrinth holds its breath, waiting to see whether its prisoners will become its conquerors. You follow them through corridors that no longer seem like walls but like channels, guiding them toward destiny. The stone passages that once held them captive now serve as the launching point for their incredible journey. The maze that was meant to imprison has become the birthplace of impossible dreams. The morning air grows brighter as they approach the opening. The scent of freedom mingles with salt spray and warm stone. The sky beckons beyond the labyrinth walls, vast and blue and full of promise, waiting to embrace these unlikely aviators in its eternal dance of wind and weather. Their wings catch the breeze, stirring with life and possibility. The feathers shimmer like scales on some mythical creature, ready to carry their burden beyond the boundaries of the known world, into the realm where only gods and dreams dare to venture. The moment of truth approaches like the dawn itself, inevitable and glorious, fraught with both promise and peril. The labyrinth that has held them releases its grip, and the sky opens its arms to welcome home these children of human ambition and divine inspiration. Chapter 3. The sky beckons. The morning breaks over ancient Crete like a blessing, painting the world in shades of gold and rose that seem too beautiful to be real. You stand at the threshold between earth and heaven, watching as Daedalus and Icarus prepare to cross a boundary that no human has ever crossed before. The opening in the labyrinth rises above them like a great stone chimney, its walls worn smooth by countless years of wind and weather. High above, the sky beckons with its infinite blue promise. A few wispy clouds drift across the opening like gentle messengers from the gods, bringing whispers of the vast world that waits beyond these stone walls. Daedalus checks his son's harness one final time, his weathered hands moving with the careful precision of a master craftsman. Every strap must be secure, every buckle properly fastened, every connection between human flesh and artificial wing tested and approved. There will be no room for error once they leave the solid certainty of stone behind. Remember, he says, his voice carrying the weight of all his love and wisdom. The middle path, neither too high nor too low. Stay close to me, and if you feel the heat of the sun growing too warm, descend immediately. Icarus nods. but his eyes are already focused on the bright opening above, on the promise of sky and cloud and endless blue freedom. His young face glows with excitement that cannot be entirely contained. Despite his father's careful warnings, the wings on his shoulders seem to quiver with their own eagerness, feathers stirring in the gentle updraft that flows through the shaft. You feel the tension in the air, the electric anticipation that comes before great moments in history. The stone walls around them seem to hold their breath, waiting to witness this impossible transformation, this moment when earthbound creatures attempt to claim the sky as their domain. Daedalus spreads his wings wide, testing their response to the air currents. The feathers catch the morning light and throw it back in patterns of gold and silver, like sunlight dancing on water. The sight is so beautiful it almost stops your heart. This fusion of human ingenuity and natural grace. "Now we begin," he says, and his voice carries the calm authority of a man who has solved the impossible, who has found a way to give humanity the gift of flight. Stay close, my son, and trust your wings. The first wing beat is tentative, experimental. Daedalus rises slowly from the stone floor, his feet leaving solid ground for the first time in his life. The sensation must be extraordinary, terrifying, and exhilarating in equal measure. Like stepping off the edge of the world itself, Icarus follows, his smaller wings beating with rapid enthusiasm, his youthful body adapting quickly to this new form of movement. You watch as the boy discovers the joy of flight, the incredible lightness of being borne up by nothing more than air and ambition. His laughter echoes off the stone walls, pure and bright as silver bells. Together they rise through the shaft, their wings catching the updrafts with growing confidence. The stone walls slide past them like the pages of a book being turned, carrying them up toward the light, toward freedom, toward a destiny that will reshape the very meaning of human possibility. The moment when they clear the top of the labyrinth is magical beyond description. Suddenly the constricting walls fall away, and the entire world spreads out below them like a vast tapestry, woven from light and color. The Mediterranean stretches to the horizon, its waters shifting through every shade of blue that exists, while the island of Crete reveals itself in all its rugged beauty. You soar alongside them, feeling the wind beneath wings you don't possess, experiencing the miracle of flight through their wonder. The air is thin and sweet up here, carrying scents of salt and wildflowers, of distant storms and sun-warmed stone. The very atmosphere seems different when viewed from this impossible perspective. Daedalus flies with careful precision, his wings beating in steady rhythm, his eyes constantly scanning the sky for signs of danger or opportunity. Every movement speaks of his respect for the forces he has harnessed, his understanding that they are guests in this aerial realm, not masters. But Icarus, oh, Icarus, the boy takes to the sky like he was born for it, his wings cutting through the air with natural grace, his face bright with the intoxication of impossible dreams made real. You can see him discovering the joy of banking and turning, of riding the invisible currents that flow like rivers through the sky. "Father, look," he calls, his voice carrying clearly through the morning air. "I can see everything!" The whole island, the ships in the harbor, the mountains, everything! Daedalus smiles at his son's enthusiasm, but his expression carries a note of caution. He has seen that look before, in the faces of men who have tasted power beyond their understanding, who have forgotten the humility that keeps mortals safe from the wrath of gods. They fly westward, following the ancient trade routes that connect Crete to the larger world. Below them, fishing boats bob like toys on the wine, dark sea, their crews looking up in amazement at these impossible figures crossing their sky. Some point and shout, others make protective signs. All understand they are witnessing something that will become legend. The morning sun climbs higher, warming the air around them, creating thermals that lift them effortlessly toward the heavens. The sensation must be intoxicating, like being carried on the breath of the gods themselves. The world below grows smaller and more distant, while the sky above seems to grow larger and more inviting. Daedalus maintains his steady course, his wings beating with mechanical precision, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon where safety waits. But you notice how Icarus begins to drift upward, drawn by curiosity toward the towering clouds that drift like white islands through the blue. "Icarus," his father calls, his voice carrying a note of gentle warning. "Remember what I told you. The middle path is safest." The boy responds with a cheerful wave-o, but his upward drift continues. You can see the temptation building in his bright eyes, the desire to explore these new realms that no human has ever seen, to push the boundaries of possibility just a little further. The clouds around them grow more numerous as the morning progresses, great white masses that tower like mountains made of mist and dream. Their shadows race across the sea below, creating patterns of light and dark that shift and change like living things. The sight is so beautiful it takes your breath away. Icarus begins to experiment with the air currents, discovering how to ride the thermals that rise from the sun-warmed earth, how to soar without effort, letting the sky itself carry him higher and higher, his wings spread wide to catch every breath of wind, every whisper of uplift that the atmosphere provides. You watch as the boy's confidence grows, as his initial caution gives way to the intoxicating realization that he has mastered the art of flight, that he can go anywhere the wind will carry him, that the entire sky has become his playground. The sensation must be like touching divinity itself. The sun climbs higher, its rays growing warmer and more direct. But the boy seems unaware of the increasing heat, lost in the joy of soaring ever upward, toward clouds that gleam like snow-capped peaks, toward heights that no earthbound creature has ever reached. Daedalus calls to his son again, his voice carrying across the growing distance between them. But the wind seems to snatch his words away, carrying them off like leaves in an autumn storm. The master craftsman's face shows the first signs of real concern, the understanding that knowledge without wisdom can be deadly. Below them, the sea sparkles like scattered diamonds, while above, the sky deepens to a blue so intense it seems almost purple. The air grows thinner at these heights, but also somehow purer, as if they are approaching the very source of all breath, all life, all possibility. Icarus laughs with pure joy as he discovers new ways to dance with the wind, spinning and diving and soaring with the abandon of youth, his wings catching the sunlight like stained glass windows. His movements grow more elaborate, more daring, as if he is performing for an audience of gods. You feel a growing sense of unease, watching as the boy climbs higher and higher, drawn by forces he doesn't fully understand. The sun above grows larger and more intense, its rays beginning to carry real heat, real danger. The very air seems to shimmer with warning. But Icarus is lost in the rapture of flight, in the incredible freedom of movement in 3 dimensions. He has forgotten his father's careful warnings, forgotten the limitations of wax and feather, forgotten everything except the intoxicating joy of touching the sky itself. The clouds part before him like curtains being drawn aside, revealing vistas of such beauty that they seem too perfect for mortal eyes. Mountain ranges that stretch to infinity, valleys filled with golden light, horizons that curve away into mystery and wonder. The world below has become a dream, while the sky above promises paradise. Daedalus beats his wings harder, trying to close the distance between himself and his son, his calls growing more urgent, more desperate. But Icarus continues his upward spiral, drawn by the same curiosity that has driven human exploration since the beginning of time, the need to see what lies beyond the next horizon. The morning air grows thin and bright around them, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. The sun beats down with increasing intensity, while the boy climbs ever higher, chasing dreams that may prove too beautiful, too perfect, too divine for mortal wings to reach. You soar alongside this unfolding tragedy, watching as love and ambition, wisdom and youth, caution and curiosity play out their eternal dance against the vast canvas of the sky. The moment hangs suspended like a dewdrop, perfect and fragile, and doomed to fall. The sky beckons with infinite promise, and Icarus answers its call, climbing toward heights that no human was ever meant to reach. Oh, while below, his father's voice grows hoarse with calling, and the sun burns ever brighter in the dangerous blue above. Chapter 4. The sun burns bright high above the wine dark sea, where the air grows thin and the sky deepens to the color of eternity. You witness the moment when human ambition meets divine territory. The sun hangs in the heavens like a great golden eye, watching as young Icarus climbs ever higher, his wings catching the light like fragments of a shattered rainbow. The boy has entered a realm that few mortals have ever imagined. Here, the clouds drift far below like distant memories of Earth, while above, the sky stretches endlessly upward, deeper and more blue than any earthly color. The air itself seems to sing with celestial music, thin and pure and somehow different from the heavy atmosphere of the world below. You feel the heat beginning to build, subtle at first, like the gentle warmth of early morning, but growing stronger with each wing beat that carries Icarus higher. The sun's rays strike his wings with increasing intensity, and somewhere in the golden wax that binds his feathers, change begins. Daedalus flies far below, his voice carrying faintly on the wind. But his words are lost in the vast spaces between earth and heaven. The master craftsman beats his wings with desperate urgency, trying to close the distance between himself and his son. But Icarus continues his upward spiral, drawn by forces beyond paternal authority. The boy's face glows with wonder as he discovers new marvels at every turn, clouds that tower like crystal palaces, air currents that spiral upward like invisible staircases, patches of sky so blue they seem to contain all the sadness and joy that has ever existed. He is drunk on beauty, intoxicated by the sheer impossibility of his situation. "Look, father," he calls, though his voice seems small in the vast blue emptiness. I can see the curve of the earth itself. I can see the edge of the world. But Daedalus is too far away to share in these revelations, and too wise to trust them, and he knows the dangers that wait in the upper reaches of the sky, knows the price that mortals pay for flying too close to the realm of gods. His weathered face shows the strain of knowledge, the terrible burden of understanding what his son cannot yet see. The sun climbs higher in its daily journey, and with each degree of ascent, its power grows more focused, more dangerous. The golden orb that gives life to the world below becomes something different at these heights, a fierce presence that tolerates no rivals in its domain, no visitors to its celestial court. You watch as the first drops of wax begin to soften on Icarus's wings. Tiny beads of gold that catch the light like tears. The boy is so lost in the wonder of flight that he doesn't notice these small betrayals. These first signs that his artificial wings were never meant to bear him to such heights. The air grows thinner still, making each wing beat more laborious, more desperate. But Icarus pushes onward, driven by the same curiosity that has always defined him. The need to see what lies beyond the next cloud, the next thermal, the next impossible height that beckons from above his wings, so carefully crafted in the dim workshop of the labyrinth, begin to show the strain of their impossible task. Individual feathers start to shift and loosen as the wax that holds them softens in the sun's growing heat. The perfect engineering that his father lavished on their construction begins to unravel thread by precious thread. But the boy sees none of this. His attention is fixed on the marvels that surround him, on the way the sunlight transforms the clouds into landscapes of gold and silver, on the vast blue depths that seem to go on forever, on the sense of power that comes from soaring where no human has ever soared before. Below, Daedalus's calls become more urgent, more desperate. The master craftsman can see what his son cannot, can recognize the signs of impending disaster with the clarity that comes from experience and wisdom. But the distance between them grows ever greater, and the wind seems to steal his words before they can reach the boy's ears. The sun burns brighter still, its heat becoming a physical presence that presses against everything in its path. The very air seems to shimmer with intensity, and in that shimmering, change accelerates. Drops of molten wax begin to fall like golden rain, each one carrying away a piece of the miracle that brought Icarus to these impossible heights. You feel the tragedy building like a summer storm, inevitable and devastating and beautiful in its terrible perfection. The boy continues to climb, unaware that his wings are betraying him, that the very ambition that carried him so high is now conspiring to bring him down. A thermal rises from the sun, warmed earth far below, carrying Icarus even higher, into air so thin that breathing becomes difficult, where the cold of space mingles with the fierce heat of the sun, creating a realm that belongs neither to earth nor heaven, but to the dangerous spaces between. The boy's wings begin to fail him in earnest. Now, feathers flutter away like autumn leaves, each one a small goodbye, a tiny piece of his father's love and craftsmanship scattered to the winds. The wax that held them runs like tears down the remaining framework, golden drops that fall toward the sea like shooting stars in reverse. Icarus feels the change at last, feels his wings growing heavy and unresponsive, feels the air that once bore him up so effortlessly begin to slip away beneath failing feathers. The realization hits him with the force of revelation, sudden and complete, filling his young face with wonder and terror in equal measure. "Father!" he calls, his voice carrying a new note now, not joy but alarm, not wonder but the first stirring of fear. The word echoes through the thin air, bouncing off invisible walls of wind and weather, seeking the man who gave him wings, who taught him to fly, who tried to teach him wisdom as well. But Daedalus is still far below, still fighting his way upward through air that grows more treacherous with every wing beat, still calling warnings that arrive too late. His face shows the agony of a father who can see disaster approaching, who understands exactly what is happening, but who cannot reach his son in time to prevent it. The sun reaches its zenith, hanging directly overhead like a great eye of fire. Its rays strike Icarus with the full force of divine displeasure, melting the wax, scattering the feathers, unmaking in moments what took weeks of patient love to create. The boy's wings, once so perfect, so beautiful, so full of promise, begin to disintegrate like dreams at daybreak. You watch as panic replaces wonder in the boy's bright eyes, as he beats his failing wings with desperate intensity, trying to arrest his fall, trying to reclaim the sky that is already abandoning him. But the physics of flight are merciless, and wings without feathers are no wings at all. More wax falls away, taking with it the last vestiges of artificial flight. The carefully crafted structure that his father designed with such precision becomes nothing more than a framework of string and hope. Beautiful but useless, like a poem written in a language that the sky no longer chooses to read. Icarus's movements grow more frantic, more desperate, as he realizes that the ground, so far below, is beginning to call to him with the inexorable voice of gravity. The boy who flew so high, who touched the very edge of heaven itself, begins his long fall back to earth. His cries echo through the morning air, not the joyful shouts of discovery that marked his ascent, but the terrified calls of youth confronting mortality, of ambition meeting its inevitable limits, of dreams learning the price of flying too close to perfection. Daedalus hears these cries and beats his wings with superhuman effort, rising through the air like a man possessed, like a father whose love can overcome any obstacle. But even love has its limitations. Even devotion cannot move fast enough to catch a falling sun. The feathers continue to fall around them like snow, like the remnants of hope scattered on the wind. Each one carries with it a memory of their time in the labyrinth, of quiet evenings spent in patient craftsmanship, of lessons shared between father and son, of dreams that seemed so possible in the dim light of their prison workshop. Icarus spreads his arms wide, trying to catch the air with nothing but flesh and bone, trying to will himself back into flight through sheer determination. But the sky that welcomed him so warmly now seems indifferent to his plight, as distant and unreachable as the father who flies desperately toward him. The boy's fall accelerates, gathering speed and inevitability. The air rushes past him with increasing violence, carrying away his calls for help, his apologies to his father, his desperate promises to be more careful, to listen better, dear, to remember the wisdom that came too late. You feel the terrible beauty of this moment, the way that triumph and tragedy interweave like threads in some cosmic tapestry. The same sun that inspired their escape, that warmed their dreams of freedom, now becomes the instrument of their separation. The force that turns joy into sorrow with impartial efficiency. Daedalus reaches the height where his sun began to fall, but Icarus is already far below, a small figure tumbling toward the sea with the helpless grace of a broken bird. The master craftsman's anguished cry echoes across the sky, a sound of such profound grief that it seems to make the very air weep. The remaining feathers of Icarus's wings stream behind him like a comet's tail, beautiful and tragic, marking his passage through the air with scattered remnants of impossible dreams. Ooh, the boy who flew so high, who saw the world from heights no human had ever reached, falls toward the embrace of waters that have claimed so many dreamers before him. His fall seems to last forever, and yet to be over in an instant. Time moves strangely in moments of great tragedy. stretching and compressing like the air currents that once bore him up. The sea below grows larger and more detailed, its waves reaching upward like welcoming arms. Daedalus follows his son's trajectory with desperate eyes, marking the spot where the boy will meet the water, calculating angles and distances with the same precision he once brought to the construction of their wings. But all his skill, all his knowledge, all his love cannot change the mathematics of gravity. The sun continues to burn in its heavenly course, indifferent to the human drama playing out below. Its light catches the scattered feathers as they drift toward the sea, transforming them into golden sparks against the blue. Beautiful and terrible, like prayers made visible in the morning air, Icarus's young face shows a strange peace as he falls, the panic replaced by something that might be acceptance, or wonder, or simply the exhaustion that comes from fighting forces too great to resist, or his eyes remain fixed on his father, even as the distance between them grows beyond bridging. The boy who dreamed of touching the sun, who flew higher than any mortal before him, who tasted the intoxicating freedom of the sky itself, falls toward a reunion with the sea that has waited patiently for his return. The water below reflects the morning light like scattered coins, ready to receive this offering from the sky. And still the sun burns bright above, eternal and merciless, beautiful and terrible, the same celestial fire that gives life to the world, that inspires dreams of flight, that demands humility from those who would approach its domain. The light that blessed their escape becomes the force that ensures their separation. The sky holds its breath, waiting for the story to reach its inevitable conclusion, while far above, a father beats wings that suddenly feel too heavy to carry, watching as his greatest creation, his beloved son, returns to the embrace of forces older and more powerful than human ambition. Chapter 5. The Silence of the Sea. The moment comes with the soft sound of disrupted water, like a stone dropped into a still pond, or a prayer whispered into empty air. You watch as the Mediterranean opens its ancient arms to receive young Icarus, closing over him with the gentle finality of a benediction. The waves that rose to meet him settle back into their eternal rhythm, as if nothing has changed, as if the sky has not just lost one of its most beautiful visitors. The sea holds its secrets close, as it always has, as it always will. The spot where the boy disappeared shows no special marking, no monument to mark the place where human ambition met divine territory. Only the endless dance of water and light, The same patterns that have played across these waters since the world began. Above, Daedalus hovers on wings that suddenly feel impossibly heavy, his weathered face etched with a grief so profound it seems to bend the very air around him. The master craftsman, the man who solved the impossible, who gave humanity the gift of flight, stares down at water that has swallowed his greatest treasure, his sun, his heart. His reason for creating miracles there. You feel the weight of silence settling over the morning sea, a quiet so complete it seems to muffle even the sound of waves against distant shores. The Mediterranean, which moments before sparkled with reflected sunlight and promise, now seems gray and somber, as if the water itself mourns the loss of the boy who dared to fly. Scattered feathers drift on the surface, the only evidence of the miracle that brought Icarus to these heights. White gull feathers and dark raven plumes. Brown sparrow down that his small fingers sorted so carefully in the dim workshop of the labyrinth. Each one floats like a memory made visible, beautiful and heartbreaking in its perfect isolation. Daedalus descends slowly, his movements mechanical, automatic, the actions of a man whose spirit has traveled to depths no wings can reach. He circles the spot where his sun vanished, searching the blue depths with eyes that see nothing but absence, nothing but the terrible empty space where laughter used to live. The sun continues its journey across the sky, indifferent to the human tragedy playing out below. Its light catches the floating feathers and transforms them into tiny beacons, each one a small flame burning on the water's surface, beautiful and ephemeral, like the boy who wore them toward his dream of touching heaven. You witness the birth of legend in this moment, feeling how the story crystallizes around the floating feathers, around the father's grief, around the terrible beauty of ambition that flies too close to forces beyond human understanding. The name, Icarus, begins its transformation from a boy's identity into a timeless warning, a reminder that some dreams are too dangerous to pursue. Fishing boats begin to appear on the horizon, drawn by reports of impossible figures flying through the morning sky. Their crews peer upward with mixture of awe and fear, pointing at the lone figure who still circles above the disturbed water. Some make protective signs, others simply stare. All understand they are witnessing something that will be told and retold until the end of time. Daedalus finally settles onto the water's surface, his wings spread wide to keep him afloat. His hands reach into the blue depths, searching for something, anything, that might bring his son back to him. But the sea keeps its prizes. and young Icarus has joined the countless others who have challenged forces greater than themselves. The master craftsman's voice breaks the silence, calling his son's name across waters that stretch to every horizon. Icarus, Icarus. The word echoes off invisible walls of grief, bouncing back to him empty and unanswered, like prayers offered to gods who have turned their faces away. Time moves differently now, measured not in wing beats but in heartbeats, not in distances covered but in depths of sorrow explored. Truth, the morning that began with such promise, has transformed into something else entirely. A lesson written in salt water and scattered feathers. In the silence that follows great loss, you float alongside the grieving father, feeling the weight of water that was never meant to support human wings. Watching as the carefully crafted feathers slowly separate from their wax bindings, each one carrying away a piece of the miracle that brought them to this place. The sea claims them one by one, adding them to its vast collection of broken dreams. The sun climbs higher, its heat no longer a threat, but a mockery, warming air that Icarus will never again breathe, lighting water that reflects a sky the boy will never again traverse. The same celestial fire that destroyed their wings now seems to illuminate the emptiness left behind, making the absence more visible, more profound. Daedalus removes his own wings with movement slow and deliberate, like a priest performing a final ritual. The feathers that carried him to safety, that preserved his life when his sons were lost, float away on the gentle current, joining the scattered remnants of their shared dream. The sea accepts them, all with equal indifference. The fishing boats draw closer, their crews calling out in the ancient languages of compassion and concern, offering help to the strange figure who floats alone on the vast water. But what help can be offered for a loss this profound? What comfort exists for a father who has outlived his child, who has survived the destruction of his heart? One boat approaches with careful reverence, its captain understanding instinctively that he is in the presence of both miracle and tragedy. The weathered fisherman extends a hand to help Daedalus aboard, asking no questions, offering only the silent support that one human gives to another in the presence of forces too great to comprehend. As they pull the master craftsman from the water, some of the scattered feathers cling to his wet clothing, white and brown and black reminders of what was lost, what was attempted, what was achieved and destroyed in the same bright morning. He clutches them like sacred relics, the only physical evidence of his son's impossible flight. The boat turns toward shore, carrying its tragic passenger back to the solid certainty of land, back to a world where humans walk on 2 feet and leave the sky to birds and gods. The water behind them settles into its eternal patterns, erasing the last traces of human ambition from its surface. But the story, the story refuses to sink. Instead, it rises like morning mist from the quiet sea, spreading across the Mediterranean world on every wind, carried by every sailor who witnessed the impossible sight, transformed by every telling into something larger than the simple tragedy of a boy who flew too high. You follow the boat as it carries Daedalus toward shore, watching as the master craftsman stares back at the place where his son disappeared, memorizing every detail, every wave pattern, every play of light on water. The spot becomes sacred to him, a shrine built of memory and salt water, a place where love and loss meet in perfect, terrible balance. The fishermen speak in hushed tones, sharing what they witnessed, their voices carrying the weight of those who have seen legend being born. They understand that this story will outlive them all, that the name, Icarus, will echo through generations yet unborn, a warning and a wonder, a reminder of both human potential and human limitation. As the shore grows closer, you can see crowds gathering on the beaches, drawn by rumors of the impossible. People point at the approaching boat, at the strange figure who sits so still in its bow, at the feathers that drift around him like fallen stars. The story has already begun to spread, to grow, to transform from tragedy into myth. Daedalus will walk on solid ground again, will breathe air that never knew the touch of wax and feather, will live out his days, carrying the weight of knowledge that changed the world. But part of him will always remain here, floating on these quiet waters, searching for a son who dared to touch the sun. The sea keeps its eternal watch, patient and impartial, holding its secrets in depths that no human skill can fathom. In its blue silence, young Icarus joins the countless dreamers who have challenged the boundaries between earth and heaven, between mortal ambition and divine territory, between the possible and the impossible. And still the story rises, like incense from an altar, like prayers from a broken heart, like the wings of birds who know instinctively what humans must learn through sorrow. The silence of the sea becomes the birthplace of legend. The quiet water becomes the canvas on which future generations will paint their own dreams of flight. The sun continues its journey across the sky, eternal and indifferent, beautiful and terrible. The same light that inspired their escape, that enabled their miracle, that claimed its price with the precision of cosmic justice dual. It burns bright above the quiet water, above the grieving father, above the place where human ambition learned its limits. In that silence, in that loss, in that perfect tragic beauty, the story of Daedalus and Icarus becomes something more than history, more than myth, more than warning. It becomes a mirror in which every human soul can see its own reflection, its own dreams of flight, its own need to reach beyond the possible, its own understanding that some prices are too high to pay, and yet too beautiful not to risk. The sea holds all of this in its vast embrace, patient and eternal, waiting for the next dreamer, the next flight, the next story that will rise from its quiet depths. The waves whisper against distant shores, carrying the tale on every tide, ensuring that the boy who flew too close to the sun will never truly fall, never truly be forgotten, never truly be silent. For in the end, it is not the falling that defines us, but the courage to fly at all. The silence of the sea becomes the loudest voice of all, proclaiming to every generation that the sky still calls, still beckons, still offers its terrible and wonderful promise to those brave enough or foolish enough to answer, and the story spreads like ripples on still water, like light from a distant star, like the whispered wisdom that passes from father to son, from dream to dreamer, from the silence of the sea to the endless conversation of human hearts that refuse to accept the boundaries between earth and heaven, between what is and what might be. The tale ends where it began, in the space between possible and impossible, in the territory where human ambition meets divine mystery, in the eternal moment when wings made of wax and feather and love and sorrow carry us higher than we ever dreamed and teach us prices we never meant to pay. Sleep now and dream of flight, of fathers and sons, of the dangerous beauty of reaching too high, and the eternal truth that some stories, once told, never end, but echo forever in the silence between heartbeats, between waves, between earth and sky.